This is something I've wanted to do for a while. It's an argument that will probably never end, always be prevalent in the anime community, especially amongst shonen fans who grew up around the same time I did. Um, this long-standing debate between One Piece and Naruto. I am personally an extraordinary fan of One Piece, and I'm here to kind of detail why I believe One Piece to be a far, far better overall superior piece of media to Naruto. And do take note, in fact, that I am a fan of both franchises. Obviously, one takes precedence over another, but I am inclined to divulge my appreciation for both long-running series that I have experienced in their respective totalities. I could very easily argue things like sales numbers, in which case One Piece does take the cake, and no, not only because One Piece is longer than Naruto, it only has 15 more volumes and 2 years of a head start than the latter, and yet it still outsells Naruto by roughly like 230 million unit sales. I mean, Naruto is still one of the highest selling manga series of all time, so I think it still stands as a giant on its own. It's obviously, you can argue Naruto is a bigger success in the West than overseas. You'd be correct, but that issue trails off into past dubbing issues of certain licensing companies, as well as a sheer matter of difference in cultures. I'm not here to argue about the statistical, but rather elaborate my finer sentiments on the overall quality of these two shows. I would like to start with the biggest driving forces of these two franchises, the protagonists. I truly do not like Naruto as a character. I find his overall design odd. His personality can range from abhorrently optimistic to just downright obnoxious and childish. And I don't just mean at the beginning of the series, I mean all the way through. I always find him kind of just grating to the ears and just... He's always come off as like a poor cosplay version of himself. I know that sounds weird, but just like, I don't like the orange jumpsuit. I don't like the flooding orange pants. I don't know, like it just... I don't like his hair. I don't like the 3 little hashes on his cheeks. I just don't like his character design at all. See, Luffy, on the other hand, has a far more relaxed design, and his rubber abilities match the flexible tones of his exuberant personality. I find more thrills with Luffy. I just find Luffy's design to be more playful and fun. And again, with his abilities matching that personality, Ichigo Oda has stated that he purposely made Luffy a rubber man in order to keep the viewer more relaxed whilst watching him do battle. Like, there's a great excitement to watching him quite literally stretch himself past any previous limitations that you thought he may have had. Take the gears, for instance, then compare them to Naruto's Nine-Tail powers. At a certain point, you can kind of get a grasp on what the Nine Tails is all about. 9 individual tails, and bearing a striking amount of power, each tail makes Naruto more feral and just more powerful. Like, just faster and stronger, whatever. It sort of becomes like the whole Super Saiyan thing. He grows more of an aura of energy and is being animated to be faster and stronger than he was previously. See, Luffy's gears actually play with the extensions of having a rubber body. Gear Second isn't just a power boost that makes him really, really fast. Like other shonen anime power-ups, Gear Second is actually explained as being a hyper-acceleration of blood flow throughout his body, forcing his entire body to move at those lightning-fast speeds. He didn't just get mad and gain a power-up. He actually created a technique that he could use because his rubber body allowed him to be pushed to those limits. Now, I'm not saying that all of Naruto's abilities are unoriginal. I'm just making a point that Naruto is a bit more conventional than Luffy. Think about it like this. By the time Naruto was mastering his Nine Tails powers, you could kind of predict his eventual abilities. Bigger Rasengan, more Shadow Clones, and yeah, just about that. With Luffy, even though we all knew Gear 4th was going to be a thing, no one actually imagined what it was going to be like. It was going to be some crazy armored bouncy ball transformation with elastic force cannons of attacks that he could kind of semi-fly with, and Luffy's transformations also have side effects to them as well. Well, at least when he first develops them, and they're demonstrated more clearly than anything it is in Naruto. But Rob Lucci, his opponent at the time of Enies Lobby, makes a note that Gear 2nd is an ability that is literally killing him as they were speaking. The blood rapidly pumping at high speeds throughout his body not only granted him lightning fast speed and reflexes, but also did heavy damage to his organs. Gear 3rd also harbored its own risks, with the fact that being blown up like a giant balloon, he would deflate like one all the same, for the same amount of time that he was utilizing the technique to begin with. And after the time skip of the series, Luffy discovers new ways of controlling these powers and eliminating some of the negative side effects of them. However, he does develop new abilities, and of course, the ultimate trump card of Gear 4th, which then has its own negative effects. There's usually some high-end risks to the greater abilities that Luffy uses, and they create stakes for him to use them. See, Naruto uses his abilities that not only can be used by anyone else in the series, whereas Luffy's abilities are unique to him and him alone, but even when faced with potential risks of certain moves, Naruto never confronts any real consequence to pushing himself past his own limitations. The only time we ever, at least to me, have truly even dabbled in this concept was when Naruto developed the Rasen Shuriken. Upon finally unleashing that attack for the first time, it was revealed that the Rasen Shuriken instilled minor cellular damage to whichever arm that he would throw it, and but they never go further into that. It just kind of falls flat. And oftentimes, these side effects just kind of get brushed off to either his Nine Tails powers healing him, or whatever type of sage jutsu, whatever kind of technique he learned, it just brushes it off to, oh, well, yeah, this thing heals me, so I'm good. And this is kind of a systemic problem with Naruto's rapid development in strength towards the latter of the series. Every time he garners new abilities, he seems like there's no downside or impending aftermath. Even when he does finally go Super Saiyan mode, Six Path Sage mode, Super Saiyan, Sage mode. Yeah, Sage mode, not Saiyan mode, Sage mode. He seems to have a bottomless well of chakra to dish out in order to continue fighting to no end. He literally goes around high-fiving his allies. Yeah, I'm not making this up. He high-fives his allies in order to grant them some of his own specialty Nine Tails chakra. At no point did I ever feel Naruto was going to pass out from exhaustion or simply run out of chakra. And I know that he's supposed to have more than any other existing being due to him having the Nine Tails beast living inside of him, but seriously, if the protagonist has no weaknesses, then what's the stake in any given battle? Maybe since Naruto was still an adolescent and a human at that, there could have been a limit to how much he could dish out at the time. I don't know, honestly, but Kishimoto could have written Naruto's abilities to not all be so damn perfect and limitless, and it's the Superman problem. It's how characters become boring to watch, and sometimes it's difficult for comic book artists to create stories about Superman, because when you have a main character who has next to no weaknesses, they have to write weaknesses into the story, and that's when contrivances happen. Another great example for Luffy is during the Marineford saga, that Luffy has been completely depleted of all energy from fighting so much and using too many of his extensive abilities. He begs his recently acquired ally, Ivankov, to use his or her own powers of enhancing hormones to give him a super boost of high adrenaline to keep him fighting strong. Eva warns Luffy that strengthening his hormones to the degree that he wishes would cause irreversible damage and it would take a decade off of his own life. The same went for when Luffy was defeated by Warden Magellan in Impel Down, the Poison Man. He was completely drowned in acidic poison, leaving him to die with 100% certainty. Eva was successful in saving Luffy's life through an assiduous healing process, and that was revealed to have also peeled away a good 10 years off his life. So Luffy is constantly just shaving off years of his life in order to push himself to these limits. And designs and abilities aside, I truly find Luffy as a much more riveting character to watch. Even his name is derivative of the word Luf, meaning to sail a ship directly into high winds. His name, in and of itself, is a compliment to his passion of pirating. And Naruto's name comes from ramen noodles. I mean, I enjoy a good bowl of ramen noodles every once in a while. It's cheap and doesn't hold much quality flavor, but it can fill you up just enough to fool you into thinking you've actually consumed something of value. Actually, when you put it like that, that's a pretty good analogy for Naruto. And granted, I know Luffy and Luffy is just... I think that's actually coincidental. I don't think Oda has... I think he's actually confirmed that wasn't intentional. But it gave me a reason to make that joke. The main point I like to focus on with the differences in their characters is their motives and their personalities. Naruto and Luffy are both undoubtedly the spiritual successors of Son Goku of Dragon Ball. They're lighthearted individuals and gifted fighters, harnessing obscenely large appetites and lack of academic knowledge and an unbreakable will to always continue to fight. So, which one is technically a better example of this shonen archetype? Naturally, you know what I'm going to say. So, allow me to explain the differences in these two characters in regards to Goku, for instance. Naruto is a series filled to the brim with filler and exposition. I actually stopped watching the show when I first tried watching it way back in high school because I got so damn tired of the melancholy drama that they kept hammering down into the series. And I was a teenager. I was supposed to love angsty drama. From the very beginning, and non-stop until the end of the series, Naruto was constantly showcased as having a lonely and miserable childhood. They show him as just not only a stupid loser with no friends, but a threatening outcast that no one in the home village wants anything to do with because of the fact that they know he has this bloodthirsty demon fox from hell living inside of him. But they consistently beat his backstory into the fucking ground over and over and over and over. And this is how the whole series begins. We see Naruto's utter pain and suffering and struggles and how he wants to be better and ultimately just accepted by his peers. That's the beginning of the series. When we first meet Luffy, he's boisterous and full of energy. He's not depressed. Even though later on we would eventually learn about his troublesome childhood, our first few arcs with Luffy have nothing to do with his tragic past. Naruto tries to win the viewer over with sympathy. They say, "Here, look at this little kid sitting alone on a swing while everyone seems happy. Do you feel bad for him? You should. He's the main character. Look at him. He's sitting quietly, pondering life while blankly staring into a river. That's sad stuff, right? That's what sad people do. Does he tug at your heartstrings yet? Did we mention that he was lonely? Because he's definitely lonely. You should certainly feel sympathy for him. Did we not show his backstory enough yet? Don't worry, he'll keep complaining about it. Because he's the main character. Look, he's sad. Look, he's staring off into the distance. Oh, he's alone." Luffy is displayed as a character who's first and foremost about adventure. They don't hammer in his upbringing and the death of his brother, being raised by bandits, and his father being a nefarious war criminal who left him behind before he was born to try dismantling the government. No! Luffy is shown as a fun-loving adventurer who speaks his mind and does freely as he pleases. He's fun. Keyword, fucking fun. Luffy doesn't have to sit around and contemplate how depressing life is by a riverbank to win over the viewer's affection. He just acts as he pleases and allows the viewer to simply have fun watching him. Luffy's biggest tragedies don't come until later in the series. We don't have to be told to feel bad for Luffy, because at the beginning of the series, we like him. And because the story focuses on Luffy and who he is as a character, not the circumstances of his past, it isn't until much later in the series that we get to try to indulge in some of his real sorrow as a character. And I would like to say that one of the most emotionally compelling scenes in the entire series, from him, is when Bartholomew Kumo takes down the entire Straw Hat crew and disperses them to different unknown locations throughout the entire world. From the very first episode, Luffy is notably the strongest character we avidly witness. He fights relentlessly and always overcomes any and all obstacles within his path. Luffy gains the viewer's trust by taking down ample opponents whom seemed far beyond what he could be capable of defeating, yet always find the strength to prevail and protect his crewmates. After hundreds of episodes and manga chapters, we finally see Luffy come to a crushing defeat, where he is helplessly unable to protect those that he cares for the most dearly. Later in that same saga, we witness a similar defeat when Luffy watches his older brother murdered right before his own eyes, not having the strength to prevent it for himself. That is true tragedy. Taking a character that we have grown to know, trust, and love, and now watch him being emotionally and physically broken down from his own weaknesses. Naruto starts out the series as weak and incompetent, and gradually becomes strong and a more able fighter. Granted, he had the most powerful living creature living inside of him the entire time, but the point still stands. Luffy begins the series as the strongest and most willful, but is eventually defeated because he takes on challenges that he wasn't ready to tackle. By the time Naruto battles Pain, he is noted to have surpassed his old teachers and even his late father, all ninjas of extraordinary power, some of the most powerful to ever live. At this point, he has gained the respect of all the citizens of the village, and now become known as one of the strongest ninjas around. At this point, it had appeared to me that Naruto had accomplished almost everything he had ever wanted. So everything after that point in the series kind of seemed to drag because of it. The difference with Luffy's big defeat at the halfway point in the series of One Piece is that Luffy is believed to be as strong as possible up to that point, and when we see just how much more he has to learn and grow, and after the time skip, we truly see him blossom even further. That defeat marks a milestone for Luffy to continue the second half of his journey. See, where Naruto struggles to become liked and win over the affection of others, Luffy is unconcerned with any of that nonsense. In fact, while Naruto relishes glory and appraisal for his achievements, Luffy literally runs away from it. His only concerns are having fun and protecting those close to him. He denies the conventions of heroism, and he flat out denies the opportunity to look like a hero when given the chance, even becoming flattered every time his bounty increases. Like, his notoriety to him is a compliment. He sticks with the notion that he's a pirate, and that his battles don't concern themselves with the greater good of a political struggle. He's just an adventurer who's going to protect his values and his crewmates at all costs. And I'd like to casually point something out. In terms of how Luffy and Naruto do battle, being that they are the main protagonist of their respective series, meaning they typically have the most exciting, best fights with the most care typically put into them. This is how a Naruto fight typically ends.
And if I become stronger, does that mean I'll become as cold-hearted as you are? For the record, I failed the graduation exam 3 times. 'Cause there was this one jutsu that was always on the exam, and it tripped me up every time. It's almost There was the one jutsu, isn't it, that I just couldn't master. The feeling of being all alone. I know that feeling. My name is a precious heirloom. I've been there. Handed down to me by my master. Lonely place. But now there are.
And then this is how Luffy's fights typically end. mean, if you were to want to watch a battle shonen anime, and you were to see that these are how both respective protagonists handle their conflicts, which one seems more interesting? See, Naruto's whole philosophy is relegated to diplomacy, where, he's trying to absolve people of their hateful and evil feelings. And this is, well, it's fucking corny. I'm sorry. I get Naruto being this upstanding moral character who wants to save everybody by seeing their good and helping them down a more righteous path. But it's unrealistic. And I know it's anime, so what about it needs to be realistic? But I mean, it diminishes a lot of the moral dilemma. It takes away the sins of the antagonist and gives them a clean slate. It's like Kishimoto doesn't want the characters that he liked designing and coming up with to be remembered for being evil, like as if he thinks only good guys can be viewed fondly. But Oda, he relishes writing despicable villains for Luffy to fight, and they're fondly remembered all the same for being those despicable villains. Luffy is someone that he views a highly sophisticated and complicated world in a carefree and simplistic way. You're an irredeemable villain? You picked a fight with one of my crewmates? I just don't fucking like you? Luffy's a good-hearted bad guy, in a way, because he's a pirate, and he doesn't care about the order of society and the government. He cares about his journey, his friends, and being free, and anyone standing in the way of that or attempting to bring harm to his world is an enemy that he sees the need to beat the ever-loving piss out of until they no longer pose a threat to him, or more importantly, his friends. Luffy understands that there are good and bad people in the world, regardless of where your allegiance lies. The world isn't black and white, it's morally ambiguous, and most of the time you're either his friend or someone irrelevant. Or you're an obstacle in his way. He doesn't care about giving you redemption because not everyone is redeemable. He's not concerned with politics or what your worldviews are. Luffy is selfish. And that's a big part of why I like him. He is concerned about doing what he wants to do. He doesn't view himself as a good guy necessarily. He's good-hearted. In the eyes of the overall world, he doesn't see that. See, Naruto sort of represents the struggle within us all. He represents anyone who has felt outcast and different. He stands for anyone with a dream who is willing to go any miles to achieve it, and also force everyone that ever doubted them to recognize his achievements. Luffy, on the other hand, is a free-spirited force of nature, unconcerned with authority and establishments. He only wishes to have fun and beat the shit out of anyone who tries to get in the way of that. And something that I hope they don't go down the route of in One Piece with Luffy is with Naruto. He ends up being the reincarnation of the original most powerful ninja, or him and Sasuke are, and it's this line of reincarnated ninjas that they end up being. And he's also instilled with the greatest known existential force inside of him, with the most endless supply of chakra, with the nine-tailed beast being sealed within him, and being the son of two of the most powerful ninjas to ever have lived. With this story of fate and all of these benefactors, how is it that Naruto still represents a struggle? Because it was ordained by the universe that he would always be who he was. There never was a struggle. It was all smoke and mirrors. Because it was already dictated by fate. And fate is lazy. And I think that diminishes everything about Naruto's struggle. Because he's no longer a character of free will, overcoming the odds. He's just a pawn in the game of fate.